My lords, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to episode 35 of the Transport Fever 2 Deluxe DLC series in the American Southwest. The city we see before us today is the city of Nashville. As we can see, Nashville is starting to build itself quite an imposing skyline on the far side of the rail station, and it's given a nice blend between the suburbs in the foreground and the high rises there in the background, and I assume that as we progress ever onwards through the years, we'll start to see more and more of those high rises starting to spring up across many of our cities. Now for today's episode, we're going to be turning our attention skywards, just as we have been here looking at those high rises, because we're going to start up our first airports. Given that we're here in Nashville, then yes, of course, Nashville will be one of the cities to receive the first airports. The other city that we're going to start with will be that of Norfolk, which is a city that has had a little bit of attention paid to it over the past 3 to 4 episodes, and it does make sense to continue in that vein. So let's bring up the user interface then. So we're in March of 1956. Money is good, 13.5 billion, and a cash flow of over 200 million per year. Okay, so airport. The airport is going to be situated on the outskirts of Nashville. That tends to be a common thing with airports in real life. And in terms of getting people to and from the airport, I think we're going to set up a light rail system from Nashville station that goes out to the airport, which is probably going to be situated either over here or over here. I'm leaning towards this area right here. The reason being is we don't have any mesas in the nearby vicinity, and when you are building your airports you do have to be careful of the terrain, because what can happen, and we'll just demonstrate here, look, we can see what's happening to the mesa on the right. It cuts quite a big channel into the surrounding landscape to ensure that your flights aren't going to have any collisions with trees and with, well, cliffs and the likes. So I'm thinking we'll have it over here, like I said, and the reason being, as we just said, we're not going to impact any of the terrain. Maybe better that way around, actually, now that I look at it. Yeah, let's have it like this. So we'll go ahead and build the airport. It's actually called it Fort Lauderdale, and I suppose it technically is maybe a little closer to Fort Lauderdale than it is to Nashville, but we will rename it, and this will become Nashville International. And like I said, the way we're going to get our passengers to and from the airport is via a light rail system. Now we do still need a road connection to bring everything online, so we'll take care of that first of all. Ideally, or thankfully, we do have a road right here nearby, so the road connection won't be too difficult to set up. This road connection doesn't have to be anything too fancy. It is just to generate these pedestrian footpath access points here in front of the terminal building. So there's our road across the front of the Nashville International. We'll connect it in to the highway just down here. What we'll also do is just remove those traffic lights there. May as well get rid of those ones and those ones while I can see them on my screen, because we don't really need the traffic lights. All they're going to do is hold things up. Now the next thing we need is a train station that's going to serve us as a light rail setup. So we don't need a long station for this, perhaps just 160 meters or maybe even just 120 will be more than enough, but we will go for 2 tracks, and we will use the high-speed track type and catenary. So I'm thinking if we put our station building right there, that means our passengers exit and they're immediately at the crossing point, which you can see just in front of the station building, so you can cross over the road and get into the terminal building pretty quickly. So now we want to connect it into Nashville Station. Now we do have some lines here, and I'd like to use this platform, ideally platform number 1, because it's a short platform and it would be perfect for just a little shuttle service. So to achieve that then, we'll first just remove that road there. we will probably need to remove these signals as well, because all this will have to be merged together. And we will use high-speed tracks for this, even though the chances are we're going to have to end up using the rail buses initially for our light rail system, but eventually I'm hoping that we will unlock some light rail vehicles that can make better utilization of these higher track speeds. While we're here, we may as well go ahead and upgrade these tracks into Nashville, so they are all high speed and electrified. And then let's just make sure platform 1 is electrified as well, which it now is. Okay, that's set up and ready to go. What we want to do now is, of course, branch off down here and head over to our new station here. Looking at the angles involved, we're probably going to have to remove this farmer's field right here, but that's a small price to pay, I think. And let's just make sure we keep this track height steady, so we have hopefully a pretty decent overlap. And in fact, if we come from the track that has to cross over first of all, we'll be able to set ourselves a nice overlap. Let's get 50 miles per hour. Yeah, that should be fine. Right, how does the overlap look? It looks pretty bad, so let's just adjust this until we get it looking a little bit nicer. Now you're saying there's a collision. Now you're not, even though I didn't change anything there. Very interesting, but as you can see, the overlap looks a lot more pleasant, so let's go for that. Yes, we are losing some elevation, going down to 4 meters, but that's nothing to be too concerned by. Okay, so we've branched off. We're now not quite pointing in the correct direction, but we're not a million miles away. We'll allow the tracks to follow the height of the terrain from here on out. There's no point keeping them artificially suppressed at this point. A 91 mile an hour curve isn't too bad at all. We'll probably just smooth this terrain out a little once we're finished, but for now it's okay. And let's see, right, getting into this station could be a little bit awkward just because we have this road right here. What I'm tempted to do first of all is just smooth off the area and level it all off, so everything is at the same height in this area, and that's going to make life a little bit easier for us. And then this edge here, we'll just smooth that in like so, and maybe just raise that up there. That's better. Okay, so we're going to have to cross some roads here, so this might be a little bit awkward, but I think it should be okay. Can we get 110? We certainly can. So we'll cross over that first access road, and then we cross over this road here. We're now up to 186, which is perfect, although we're not quite pointed in the correct direction, so let's get that 110 again. Build the level crossing over that road right there, and now we should be able to just connect these two up. The speeds on this are not the best, but the vehicles that we're going to be using, the trains that we are going to be using, are not the fastest, so it's not that critical. What is a little more critical is making sure we have a diamond so we can access both platforms. So let's give them a diamond. Okay, can't do it from there. I didn't think we would be able to, but I thought I'd chance my arm. Yeah, you're saying too much slope, which is odd because there's no slope at all. Okay, well, we might just have to leave it like that. And then what that means is platform 1 must be used for the Nashville connection. In the future, we might also go into Fort Lauderdale, and they will then have to use platform 2. So it's not the end of the world, although it isn't as ideal as Out of Light, but I don't think it's going to be a problem for us. Now we'll just smooth off that terrain there from where we built the tracks, and we had to go down into the ground somewhat and cut in a little. That's better. Okay, so that's ready to go. In terms of what depot we can use. Well, I think we could use, do we have any over here? I thought we did. Yeah, we have this one here. We should be able to use that one. So let's get this line set up, and we're coming from Nashville over to Upper Fort Lauderdale. Let's just rename that, shall we? That can become Nashville Airport. There we go. And in terms of rail naming, we will go RP, and this will be the Nashville Airport Shuttle. That way we know exactly what it's doing. Line coloration, let's use that nice pastel blue colour right there. And they have used platform 1 at Nashville, which is exactly what we wanted. And as predicted, we've had to use platform number 1 at Nashville Airport as well, because we have no way to get over to, hang on, oh, we haven't done our signals, that's the problem. Well, that's won't be a problem for much longer. Let's do our signals now. That's quite an important part of your line management, so let's put a signal there and then put some blocking signals along the rest of the track. The trains down here are only going to be what we will call light rail, so they don't need overlong blocks because the trains themselves are not going to be very long. There we go, maybe put one up there as well. Okay, so if we now head back, we're still using platform 1 because we have no way to get back to the correct side of the tracks for the return journey from the airport. As we can see, we got one crossover, but if you remember, we couldn't squeeze in that second one. Okay, so that's set up. Let's go and buy the trains. I think to start with, like I said at the outset, we will have to use the M300 rail bus, which is very slow, but over time, as we unlock extra options, we will seek to upgrade and replace these. And I think we'll get 2 of those for 15.5 million. Let's do that. Give them the same colour as the line they're running. We may as well give them very high maintenance at this point. And if we head over here so we can see the line on the map, we can assign them. So there'll be no passenger demand down here for now because there's nowhere for them to go when they get to the airport. So these will run empty for a little while, but that's fine. We can live with that. We can absorb that cost. So what we'll do now is we will head over to Norfolk and we shall repeat the process. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now here in Norfolk. So where do we want to build the airport for Norfolk? And we have a lot of space right here, so this would be quite useful and quite forthcoming for an airport. We won't put it there because, as we can see, we are playing havoc with the hillsides, so we want to rotate it. And let's see, let's have it maybe spin it around that way, and let's pop it. Can we get it a little bit closer to the city? Yes, we can. Let's have it there. That's had no impact on this hillside here. It may have messed up or caused some weird terrain around here. Yeah, we have a little bit just here, as we can see. So we'll have to take care of that. But we can easily blend that in, and it doesn't look as obvious anymore. It is quite sunken there, but I don't think that'll be a problem. But what I think would make sense is just using the asset eraser tool and clearing something of a flight path like this, and maybe just along here as well. And this is exposing some more strange bits of terrain, but we can sort those out. So if we do that, it allows the pilots to get a good view of the, is it the ILS? I believe it's called. These approach runway lights right here. I might be wrong, but it allows them to see where they're headed and get lined up for a safe landing. So this is Norfolk Airport. We'll retain that name. There's nothing offensive about that. What we want to do now is build a street connection, and I think we're also going to have a tram line on this as well. So let's grab a road straight across the front of the airport all the way down. How does that look? Nope, that's awful. That's better. So we'll do that. Then we can put a simple bus station or bus stop right here outside the front of the terminal, and we can perhaps set up a tram system that ferries the passengers from the airport into a central location somewhere in the city of Norfolk. So let's get everything interconnected then, so it will work as intended. Let's bring you down this way. Let's just retry that. Have you go there, and then there. There we go. We could bring this through as well. I don't mind having a bit of a road tunnel for this bit here, and then reconnecting somewhere down there like that. Let's just upgrade that stretch of road to the same size. There we go. Okay, so where do we want to put a central passenger exchange for Norfolk? I think we can have it somewhere in this area, you know. Let's do it. Let's remove those roads there. Quickly pause it, because the AI does have a tendency to rebuild the roads when you're trying to do something else with the space you've just freed up. Let's go for 4 platforms at 30 meters. Tram track electric, yes. And let's pop this fellow there. What we also want to do, in fact I might mix it up by having them come in and out like this. So let's change the street access around and have it do that instead. And then we'll reconnect, or we'll connect this into the roads in the nearby area. So let's give them a nice straight road across to that junction there. Let's then bring that in like that. We will remove those traffic lights in a few moments. And let's bring you into there, you into there, and I think we'll also go ahead and upgrade this road size as well, and this one and that one. Yes, that will do quite nicely. That's given us a whole host of traffic lights. Let's just remove those, shall we? So remove those ones there. And these ones along here. That's better. Let's remove that one there as well while we've got the screen open. So, Norfolk transfer. So we have a place for them to drop off, but we don't have a way, because we have no electrified tram lines up this central avenue here or down here. So we'll just quickly use the upgrade tool. We'll upgrade with tram tracks and make sure we select catenary, and then just select all of this and turn it all from blue to red, and then our trams have a valid way to get to and from the airport. So all of this go along the front and these little connection points as well, and there we go. Wonderful. So we can resume the game now. We will need a tramline depot, of course, so let's build one of those, and let's have that nestled over here, and let's give that a small connection because it's not going to be high volume, in like that. Electrified, please. There we go. We want to remove those traffic lights, and we may as well do those ones, and in fact let's do all of the ones that we can see in Norfolk. So removing all of these traffic lights here. It's a thing I tend to do. By and large, to me, it does seem to make your traffic flow a little bit smoother. And yeah, there we go. So that's why I prefer to not have traffic lights. There are some instances where they are useful, but as a general rule of thumb, I will just delete them all. Anyway, new line. So we want to come... Oh no, we can't, because we need to put down the bus or tram stop, and again, if we pop it there, it's right next to these link points, so they don't have far to walk. So back to this line, we'll have this coloured red, and we want to come from Valley Street over to here. That's quite quite nice. What platform are you on there? Platform 4, you're on that one. Now you see, if you're, well, that's, so you're coming in this way, coming in and now, okay. Well, let's just play about with some waypoints over here. Let's surround this area with waypoints. That'll allow us to have a lot more fine control over where the trams are headed. So what we want you to do is, can you leave via that waypoint, and will you be doing a silly? That's not bad. You kind of double back on yourself, but I don't mind it too much. So that works, and you are using this tunnel through the hillside here to rejoin the main roads, the main city roads, so that's fine. And that is pretty much all we need from this. So we'll rename this M for Metro, and this is the Norfolk Airport Shuttle. There we go. Now we can purchase some trams, and it'll be the Toronto PWC A7s, and I think we'll go for 4. Once again, there's no harm in applying maximum maintenance to these. Colour them red, apply them to the line, and away they go. So now our passengers have a way to get in and out from both airports. Before we set up the route itself, however, I'm just going to see if I can get rid of those lines in the terrain there. Now this is going to cost an absolute fortune, as we can see, already up to 8 million. But basically all we're doing here is carving away into the airport without having those angled lines going that way and that way. Of course they were exposed after I deleted all the trees, but not having the trees there does make sense. And I think we can make it look pretty natural looking, perhaps. Okay, it's not very natural looking at all, because it happens to coincidentally line up with the airport, but it is what it is. It looks better, I think. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now then we are able to set up the actual air route itself. So we are coming from Norfolk Airport. For the colour scheme, let's go a nice dark green. And we are heading all the way down here into Nashville. There we go, nice and simple. And for this we shall use A for airline, and this will be Norfolk, Nashville. And that's all there is to it. Okay, let's buy some aircraft. So we want passenger aircraft. The biggest ones we have are the Lockheed Super Constellations, and we have 2 variants. They have the same statistics and costs, the only difference is the skin, and I think we'll just go for the Lockheed Super Constellation L1049. And we'll get 2 of those for just under $10 million. We'll colour them green so they match the line that we're assigning them to, and we can then send them on their way. So this will be interesting to see how much passenger pickup we have at these 2 airports. It might not be a great deal. This one especially is quite a way away from the town, but we shall have to wait and see what happens there. The airport at Norfolk, it is a lot closer to the city, so there should be that increased encouragement to actually make use of it, but again, time will tell. So that's our first Airlink setup on the map. We don't yet have any ships on the map, and it is something I am planning to do at some point, but we don't have too many cities or towns nestled against the river. We have Bellevue, which is untouched. We have Gainesville, which is untouched. We have Peoria, which is untouched. We have Sioux Falls, which is untouched. And we have Wilmington up here in the northern centre, which we do have a few things coming into. We have a passenger link set up. So I think having a ferry system from Gainesville to Peoria wouldn't be too bad. Would be quite a pleasant journey. We could sail one up this meander here and into Bellevue, but as we've just seen there from the towns that we've just ticked off, none of them are very big. All of our bigger cities, they all tend to lie a little bit more inland, such as Knoxville, Norfolk, Nashville and Carrollton. But having some small river services, I'm not too opposed to that. We could even do some river freight as well. For instance, what we could do, you need bricks. No, we wouldn't actually have bricks right now. What about you? Goods. Do we have any manufacturers along the river's edge? Well, we have tools down here. Do we have any riverside cities that require tools? Wilmington, but that's a bit of a trek, especially when we have a tool factory right here. What about you? Machinery. Well, we're already producing machinery there, so maybe river cargo won't be the most viable option on this map, but we can certainly get some passenger ferries set up, I think, in the next couple of episodes. Maybe one from Gainesville to Peoria and then on to Sioux Falls and coming back the way. And if we really wanted to as well, what we could do is have a man-made canal through this little peninsula here to save the ferry from having to travel all the way out here and double back up this way. They could just cut through our man-made canal just through here. We'd have to remove this road, but that's not a problem. But we'll think about that as and when the time comes. I think for now we've been going for about 20-25 minutes, so not quite half an hour, but we don't really have time to squeeze anything else in this episode. So what we'll do is we'll wait for our first aircraft to land at Norfolk, and then we'll have a flight down to Nashville. Where are we? All the way down here. And I think we'll also fly back to Norfolk as well. So there's one of our aircraft there. Are you the first aircraft to leave? Let's try and find out. Well, you're aircraft number 1. Where is aircraft number 2? Yes, you're just really getting to your cruising altitude there. So yes, it will be aircraft number 1 that we take a ride on, because it's the first one that's going to arrive in Norfolk. So what I'll do now is I shall pause the calendar, set the game to 4 times speed just to get this aircraft in and landed and ready to take off as quickly as possible. And then as we're about to take off, we'll hop on board in the cockpit or on the front of the cockpit and enjoy a bird's eye view of this map on our way to Nashville, and like I said, more than likely back into Norfolk as well. Okay, welcome back ladies and gentlemen. We are just taxiing and making our way to our takeoff point. We don't have any passengers on board, although as we pulled away from the stand, I did notice our first passengers walking into the terminal. So aircraft number 2 will have our inaugural passenger aboard. For ourselves, we will be flying empty. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I must say it's always a welcome and appreciated change to take a step away from road vehicles and trains, as much as I love them, and dip your toe into the water of aircraft and, pardon the pun, but also shipping as well. Not that we did any of that in today's episode, that's all to come. Are those trees a bit low? We might have to sort that out. That just didn't look quite right. I think we'll have to flatten that terrain off a little bit there. But I must say it's a rather splendid view of the map from up here, and hopefully the rest of the journey will be just as pleasant. If we end up coming back to Norfolk, what I'll likely do is just put a little cut in when we get to Nashville, and yeah, the cab ride will be a quick land and then an immediate takeoff, rather than taxiing all the way to the aircraft stand and then taxiing back to the runway, if you follow what I'm trying to say. As always at this point though, I'd like to say a special thank you to those of you over on Patreon. Your support is deeply and greatly appreciated, so thank you very much indeed for your generosity there. But for now, all that remains for me to say is, as always ladies and gentlemen, take very good care of yourselves. it's ta-ta for now.